Because the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, better, was framed on empowering Kenyans at the lower part of the pyramid and ensuring that we start from down to up there, then I think by the time we're getting to 2027, we should also be up there. And there is a click that Mbadi must crash as early as yesterday. It is a big injustice for the Treasury cartels to be churning out tax policies that are gearing towards collecting taxes of Kenyans, of mama mbogas, from breaking the backs of hardworking Kenyans to collect taxes, while the bigwigs are enjoying tax holidays, exemptions, waivers, and abandonment, the fellows that are supposed to fund this country. I think we need to have a candid discussion. And what I'm going to show you in this podcast is going to blow your mind, looking at how there is a conduit, there is a ring of fellows that are hopping from one office to the other so that they can get tax waivers. But more interestingly is the execution of those tax, how the tax exemptions and waivers are administered. There is a loophole that if we try and accept what Mbadi is asking Treasury to do, then maybe we can be an inch closer to solving this problem. That more than 3 trillion budget that we've been collecting for this country, I have seen President multiple times talking about tax refunds. And there have been all manner of ordinary taxes that is collected from Kenyans to fund the Kenyan government. But if we cannot be able to push and collect money from the billionaires in this country, then we are getting something very wrong. Since President William Ruto took over, his close associates, the Sudis of our time, just as Christian as a kitchen cabinet, have been brokering tax exemptions for firms or individuals willing to invest in Kenya, as well as trying to harass Uhuru Kenyatta era tycoons facing criminal charges such as tax evasion. Besides the clique headed by the State House mandarins, he has allegedly been illegally dealing in elephant tusks business, brokering international tenders in strategic state parastatals, and even protecting those engaged in dubious jobs abroad that fleeced Kenyan job seekers billions of shillings. And you really can sympathize with Kenyans that to date, Mandago is sharing a podium with the president in Eldoret during the elevation of the Eldoret city, and Mandago reputation was riddled by that Finland scam. You can see the way the billionaires at the top are fleecing the little resources that Kenyans are actually having. So I want to show you this ring that Mbadi is already clashing with Mbadi. They're moving from one office to the other to collect taxes, and all this thrive in tax evasion. Look at this. Trade CS Moses Kuria wants tax removed. That edible oil deal, Kenyan lost more than 2 billion in form of taxes because paperwork and every strategy and every trick was employed. Whether it is, it's supposed to be imported as crude oil or refined oil. So there was a trick that was played there, and Kenya lost money in that. That was already a tax issue. Now, the process of tax waiver must be made tedious and bureaucratic. Look at this. how Chinese firm evaded paying over 1 billion tax, transferring income to China through shell companies. And you can look at many of these stories. The process of waiver is very interesting, and I just want to show you how the cartel, the state house cartels, are getting their way with these tax waivers and exemptions. And the money that is being seen as opulence, many have been asking, which kind of business is the political class doing that they're making millions of shillings in terms of profit, that they can make all that? What exactly are they, what exactly is this kind of business that they are doing? Now, John Mbadi is asking that we must have a departure from, and we must, and I think one of the things we must reform is execution of tax waivers. I want to show you, I want to give you a typical example of what happens in this country, especially from the Treasury. There is this article here. The Treasury and Attorney General's office are under scrutiny over a decision made to grant some company known as Blue Nile Rolling Mills Limited tax exemptions allegedly amounting to 145 billion shillings. Now I just want to see this example so that you see what happened. Members of the National Assembly Committee on Delegated Legislation said that the award was done against the law without the involvement of Parliament, which is required to develop and pass laws to effect tax exemption. Do you remember at one point, I want to play for you this video. That was Kimani Ichung'wah asking Treasury to publish all taxes. Of course, at that time, he was targeting Kenyatta family when he was making this statement.
Kenyans again are aware there are those who used their offices as public officers in this country to grant themselves and their families and their cronies tax waivers. I have today written to the Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, requesting for information on all tax reliefs, exemptions and waivers that were granted from January 2018 to date. And in my letter to the Cabinet Secretary of National Treasury, I have requested him to respond to us in line with the provisions of this article in our Constitution and give us information on all taxes that may have been waived, reliefs that may have been given, except, of course, to religious or faith-based organizations or institutions, educational institutions, and charitable organizations. As I said, from January 2018 to date, under the following laws: the East African Community Customs Management Act, the Income Tax Act, Cap 470, the Stamp Duty Act, Cap 480, the VAT Act of 2013.
So, the Parliament is supposed to pass law, to have strict and rigid legislation. They should oversight tax exemption policies. And that is what Mbadi is asking that it should be done. But there is something that I want you to look at here. There's this framework known as Special Operating Framework Arrangement SOFA. This is a requirement in law that is granting, this arrangement grants tax exemptions to companies that are establishing in Kenya for the first time, and of course those that are also trying to bridge a gap. For example, if Kenya has been exporting a product, and now there is a company that wants to set up in Kenya, and because it's going to create employment and also going to have availability of that product, through SOFA, they can get tax exemptions. SOFA is Special Operating Framework Arrangement. The people that are involved in granting tax exemptions are Treasury Cabinet Secretary and his Trade and Industry counterpart, both are signed under, both are the signatories of SOFA. Now, this is the gap that is being used. The moment we allow the Treasury CS or a cabinet secretary that in that capacity he can be able to maneuver his ways and give tax waivers, that is the space we are fattening these cabinet members. I can tell you, the Moses couriers are very rich now, even if they are out of cabinet. And this is this is a loophole that has been used and exhausted by those in power. So if we want to collect tax from everyone, then we must be intentional about it, because there is no way, and it doesn't make economic sense, that you cannot give a waiver to Wanjiku here while the big boys, the blue-eyed guys, are taking it. Even last year, during, and just look at this, 3 companies, Positive Human Vaccine Manufacturing Company, Moderna Human Vaccine Manufacturing Company, are yet to begin operations in Kenya despite of those tax waivers. The exemptions and waivers and abandonment even featured during last year's budget making process, and you can listen to this here.
Abandonments, about waivers, and about exemptions that were given, we were not able to get that information today. And you have said we have given you up to 20th of March to service that information to public, so that it can be to Parliament, so that we can table that report to Parliament, so that that report can be subject to public scrutiny, and we can know who are these demigods who are being granted abandonments and waivers and exemptions just like that. And just how painful this is. We have had some people, especially young people, who have missed out on employment opportunities because we were not able to get a certificate of tax compliance, because they probably registered for VAT and they are not VATable, and KRA did not give a waiver. And then you hear people are just getting waivers of billions of shillings, not even just waivers, even abandonments. And these abandonments are taxes that these people had collected. We're not even saying it is from your pocket. It is taxes that you collected on behalf of KRA. Because when you pay, you're just collecting as an agent. Excise duty, you're collecting as an agent. VAT, you are collecting as an agent, because stamp duty, you're collecting as an agent, because the consumer has already paid. So your role is just to remit. So we're not talking about even waivers on interest or penalties. No, we're talking about these taxes that Kenyans paid. But instead of this institution and these companies remitting that money to KRA, they use it for their own things, and Treasury decided that they can be abandoned. This impunity really has to end. Again, we have not got into the gist of it. Some of these matters are in court. For example, the empowerment by the leo ya wanawake. There is the arbitrary exemptions by. There was also recommendations by Treasury to waive off withholding tax that was supposed to be withheld by Ministry of ICT through that transaction with Huawei in Kwanza City. And the irony in that even is that this Chinese company actually gets to pay their rightful share of tax.
Now, you'll agree with me that this is a conduit. It is one of the areas where, if Kenya Kwanza administration is very serious and very intentional about bottom-up economic model, and to lower, or rather to go slow on breaking the backs of hustler, then you need to go and collect it. And I think for the last 3 centuries in this country, we've never been collecting money from the rich. So I know this is a very sensitive part for Mbadi. It is the hardest nut to crack. But if you can collect the taxes from the big boys, then we will stop and will reduce bothering the small boys down here. We need to go after that group. And you can look at how arrogant they are. Just recently, a few months after the National Assembly on Land, Committee on Land, summoned Oscar Sudi over illegal acquisition of over 1,500 acres of land in Keses. Look at how Sudi was arrogantly telling that committee that I will not come. And by the way, he didn't go and there was nothing to be done.
Niliona juzi Josh Nyamoko, chairman wa Lands, na timu yako wa Lands, mkiuliza eti mimi nikuje kwa komiti ya Lands. Siwezi kuja. Why? Hiyo shamba, it belongs to Moi University. Haina kesi, haina anything ya kuongea juu yake. It is directly for Moi University. Hata ukiuliza mtoto wa standard 2 hapo atakwambia shamba ni ya Moi University. Na ukitaka zaidi uliza assistant chief, uliza chief. Ukikuja juu sana uliza VC wa hapo na ulize watu wa area hiyo. Nimeona hiyo lugha mnatumia nyinyi wenyewe mnakaa kama grabbers. Especially your vice chair. We are going to expose you very soon. Kwa sababu hamwezi toka all the way from Nairobi kutumia pesa ya serikali. Na hiyo ni too direct. Hiyo shamba ni ya Moi University, hata haihitaji investigation. Ilikuwa inafaa mtu mmoja tu aenda hapo atembea ulize mimi nimesaliwa hapo. Na hapo sio ati ni cases peke yake. Ni Kapseret nusu, cases nusu. Lakini shamba ni ya Moi University. So na mwaje ku drop majina ya watu. I am one of you. Why don't you call me and ask me? Ningekusaidia hata before you left Nairobi. Ninyi wote kwenda kwa hoteli na kuandika report na kusema don't drop. Umeingia kwa siasa ya cases bila wewe kujua. Umedanganywa na huyu mtu hapo wa cases ati you have to mention jina huyu mtu. I'm not a grabber. I've never grabbed any land. Me, I bought my lands. So please, hiyo shamba ni ya Moi University, haihitaji hata maswali, haihitaji chochote. It is direct for Moi University. So mwache kusumbuka bure. Kama mlidanganywa ati kuna shamba hapa mkifanya hivi mtagawiwa. So labda nyinyi ndio grabbers. But that land, it's belong to Moi University. No question about it. It is directly from 1980 something, early 80s. Na hata ukiangalia kwa map, you don't have even to go to all the way to Moi University to Eldoret. So please, hiyo shamba ni ya Moi University, period.
So, this is the special team. At a phone call away, you can get a tax waiver and a tax exemption. Now, if we are not going as a country, and if Mbadi is not going to be allowed to, is not going to take it to Parliament, make it bureaucratic and very tedious, so that we scoop that money. I see people talking about, I've seen some people talking about money in offshore accounts. Even if recollecting money in offshore account is a problem, but why don't we then collect the taxes from everyone? And now this is one thing that is annoying many people, that you want to collect any shilling from people down here, but on top there, companies are getting tax privileges, tax exemptions. And why don't they pay taxes if they're making all that money? And it is the space that people are getting rich with. I'm told that what normally happens is the State House mandarins will go out there, will meet with an investor in some posh hotel, that when that investor approaches them, they cut a deal. They say, you know, give me X amount of money, then I'm going to take you to Waziri X, and then when I take you to Waziri, Waziri will make sure you can get this tax waiver and set up your company to start. Now, this is the abracadabra why this country cannot get itself in the right foot. It cannot get its footage. So if Mbadi is to fix, you can fail to fix everything. You may not be able to fix the other policies, but at least can you collect from the rich? When Mbadi must go after this cartel is this: tax exemptions or waivers are tools of creating monopoly. Because if we are in a market and me, I am not paying taxes, and you are paying taxes. What does it mean? Your cost of doing business is way favorable than me. And that what I will end up with is the fact that, because for me the cost of doing business to me is less compared to you, the value of our products cannot be the same. Because I have tax waivers, so tax expenditure is not part of my cost of doing my business, I can be able to get my way with it. I can be able to get away with it. So that is why I insist. And when we have monopoly, who loses? We cannot have, when we have monopoly, economy loses. Because the monopoly is actually a monopolistic market is uncontrolled market. It cannot even be able to meet the employment demands of a country. But if companies compete in a fair manner, then they can all thrive, and through that, our economy can stabilize. And secondly, the cartel is driving the Kenyan political landscape through tokenism. It is this money that is being given in churches. It is this money that is being given in every sort of fundraiser. It is this money that is seen, that Kenyans are seeing in social media in form of opulence. So this will also help us to fix our politics. Oh my goodness, I like the US one. They are doing public fundraisers, like we normally do fundraisers in this channel. They do public fundraisers to collect money. So you know, money comes from the people. But in Kenya here, you need to maneuver your way and get tax exemption so that you collect all that loot. And the saddest part of it, even if you exempt them from that tax, that money doesn't get to economy. You exempt these companies, they take that money to their countries. So the best we can do is to collect it here. And I think this will end tax injustice. We need to do something and let Mbadi cross paths with everyone. The Sudis and the couriers that cut corners and get people that can get tax exemptions must and should be stopped as a matter of urgency. Thank you.